This quarter, in the first 3 months of this year, 2024, saw a really huge surge in the installation of public charging stations across the UK, which highlights the increasing presence of plug-in cars on British roads. There are a load of them. I've noticed this. I've been away for 3 years and I've come back, tons of them. It's crazy. According to data from ZapMap released by the UK's Department for Transport, nearly 6,000 new EV chargers were deployed in the first 3 months of this year, 2024. Approximately 25% of those were fast chargers, DC fast chargers. As of April 1st, the UK boasted nearly 60,000 operational public chargers, which is actually 49% more than the previous year in 2023, and then almost double, actually, the year before in 2022. That is crazy. A chap called Ben Nelms, he's the boss or the CEO of a company called Automotive, highlighted that this expansion has significantly improved access to public charging, particularly in areas where people couldn't get one before that were previously underserved. For example, Wales, if you go to rural Wales. A survey conducted by the Electric Vehicle Association in the UK of over 1 million EV drivers in the UK revealed some interesting insights. So only 6% of them in the UK reported experiencing frequent range anxiety, and 94% stated that they didn't experience it or very rarely, basically. So this suggests a lot more confidence among EV drivers regarding the range and accessibility of the charging infrastructure. Fortunately, when cars had a smaller range and slower charging, like the Nissan Leaf back in, say, 2013, for example, and 14, those cars, they sort of didn't really stick around very much compared to nowadays. When you look at the numbers, we sold a few of them, so many thousands, and then basically now the mass market is made of hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles with a much larger range that charge quicker, basically. So I think that's kind of a big advantage. That anxiety that was sort of around 10 years ago, 8 years ago, just isn't really there in the same way, but it is still a bit there, of course. I mean, you can't hide from the fact that, say, a Honda Jazz on a tank of petrol can get you from A to B, and the distance could be between A to B 450 miles, and you can't do that really in an electric hatchback. That's not a Tesla, that's something a bit cheap. You just can't do that. But nevertheless, people are obviously aware of that, and they know obviously that you don't need to typically do that. It would be better if an EV could do 400 miles or something like that, but it's not necessary, and the pros outweigh the disadvantages. I think that's kind of what people are realizing. And on an ordinary week or month, for almost everyone, you don't need that sort of range. You can really just rock around in a car that can do 300 miles, 200 miles, 150 miles. You really don't need more than that. So, and of course, if it isn't going to be good for you, you'll probably just not buy the car in the first place. So that's an important thing. Like if you're a Tesla driver, probably don't go and buy a Fiat 500e that can do 150 to 180 miles range, in summer or winter, because it's not enough for you. Probably, you should probably just keep a Tesla. So for those of you that are new, I'm Ben Alexander, and I talk about EV news from around the world, and I do videos almost every day. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe if you're interested in this sort of content. I've been doing this for, I don't know, a year and 4 months or something like that. I've been very, very busy moving from Australia to Europe. And yeah, it's just kind of a very busy time. So sometimes I've not been doing things for a few days here and there. And at present now, I've actually been helping my mum renovate a kitchen, for example. It takes a lot of time to look at shades of grey paint. But it's coming on. So I've noticed in my comments as well that there's definitely a couple of groups of people, roughly. So there's those people that love EVs, or they just like them, or genuinely they don't mind EVs or whatever fuels the car. They don't really care. And then there are people that absolutely hate EVs passionately. They're so aggressive about it. And I bet you can guess some of the reasons that they have for hating EVs. It's not hard to imagine, really. Automatically, though, YouTube filters comments that are seen as kind of hateful or just full of swear words and that sort of stuff. And I don't really, almost never check the YouTube filtered email, the comment section. YouTube does do random comments that shouldn't be filtered. So if you've written something and it just doesn't show up, I'm sorry, that's not actually me doing that. And it's pretty rare, it's very rare I delete a comment. If it's hateful or really aggressively just unpleasant for anyone reading it, I'll remove it. But that was 3 months ago, probably, I last did one. And before that, 2 months. It's pretty rare, honestly. So have at it. Say what you want in the comments. Okay. I also, I think it is important that you get to say what you want as the viewer. You're the consumer. So I make these videos, put them on YouTube. You watch them. You get to say what you want, pretty much, unless it's going to be incredibly hateful. In which case, either me or YouTube will just remove that. But you can disagree. You can say that I'm a bit stupid. Whatever you want. It doesn't matter, honestly. You can't ignore the fact that what an engine does is very much overkill. Petrol or diesel, the combustion engine really is serious overkill, because the only thing it needs to do is rotate a shaft. And engines use flammable liquid, and pistons and valves and springs and conrods, and they don't need to do that this day and age anyway. It is incredibly outdated. That stuff was thought up and designed, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, I don't know, something like that. It's very finessed though it may be. A motor, with magnets going around it and some windings, is a far better way to rotate a shaft, simply. So then what propels that motor? That is the question, isn't it? And of course, you could say that if you can get like a sodium battery and use nothing too impactful to create the battery, and then store the energy in it, that would be a really good thing. Hydrogen, the tricky thing I think a lot of people don't realize is that to produce enough energy to drive 80 miles, to just produce it and put it into your car, you need to use 60 kilowatt hours of electricity just to produce it and put it into the car, and then your car can do 80 miles. So you're producing a lot of producing a lot of electricity, consuming it before it's even gotten to the car, and then you get to drive a bit. That's the issue. What happens when a hydrogen car is 10 or 20 years old and it's say comparable now to what a 20-year-old Honda Jazz is, and you've got some sort of system where you've got a 13,000 psi tank in your car, and it's 20 years old, and you need to fix it, and you're a bit poor, or let's just say you live in a capitalist society, and you live in a place where salaries don't match what is necessary to even survive. So destitution, basically, and your car happens to be hydrogen, it will immediately be written off. You'll not be able to fix that if ever something goes wrong with it. So that's the good thing, I suppose, about petrols and diesels. They can be kept along, kept alive. Just you can string them along, change a thing here and there and a wire, and do a little bit of things. You can swap an engine for a few £100 on a Honda Jazz or a Toyota Yaris. I've seen them now knocking around 100,000 miles, £600 for a Toyota Yaris. That where is this going in the next 20 years? So this is an issue. So if you're thinking about how best to rotate a shaft, a motor is obviously very good. Hydrogen at this point, I think, there's a question mark above it. So you can either combust the hydrogen, that may be an option, honestly, or you can use it in a fuel cell to create electricity. Airbus, right now, I believe, for 3 or 4 years, are doing a really interesting experiment on the very first Airbus A380, where they've basically fitted an engine to it, and they're going to run it and try to see what would be more efficient, combusting or using a fuel cell, if they were to use hydrogen to make a sort of hybrid aeroplane, or an aeroplane that uses just hydrogen A to B. Really interesting stuff. There was an interview with James May from Top Gear recently, and I would totally agree with him that to make this change to full electric, the vehicles in the UK need millions of chargers, not thousands of chargers. We need wires going over curbs, for example. If you look in a lot of the places in England, north or south, it doesn't matter really, where people live on small streets where there's a curb and there's no real place to park a car. They need to also be able to charge up a battery basically in their cars in the next 10, 20 years. This stuff is fine. That can be addressed. It might take more than 12 months or 24 months to do it. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it is obviously happening that cars are becoming electrified, and so that stuff needs to be addressed, of course. But realistically, I do think it's not tens or hundreds of thousands, it's millions of EV chargers that we need. And that means 6,000 EV chargers going up in a quarter is not sufficient. At that rate, it is going to take 100 years to electrify the vehicles on the road. So what do you all think? Please feel free to let me know. I'm really curious to know what you think about that. So I'll be looking at the comments after this video. So once this video goes live, if it's within that first couple of hours, I'll be periodically looking at it, and I'll reply to your comments if you've got any questions. Thanks for watching, and yeah, I'm sorry about the randomness of some of my videos lately and the inconsistency of it. I know it kind of sucks a bit sometimes, but I'm just going through a lot of stuff. So, but I'm happy and healthy, so that's kind of an important thing, I think. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate your time, listening to me rant on about this, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the day or evening, wherever you are.